Hi, welcome to Philly Jazz Talks. I'm Suzanne Cloud, Project Director of the Philadelphia Jazz Legacy Project. And this evening we're going to be talking with bassists John Patitucci and Brian Bromberg about their upcoming performances for the upcoming Basses Loaded Festival by the South Jersey Jazz Society. And with festival organizer saxophonist Michael Pedestin Jr. and the curator of the festival, Joseph Donofrio. This three-day event, October 10th through the 12th, in addition to Mr. Patitucci and Mr. Bromberg, the fest will offer a first-class lineup, including bassist Ciara Moser, and besides the Gateway Playhouse, there will be bands appearing at Gregory's. And one will be Andy Lalasis, the recent award winner of the George Mesterhazy Award, and his quartet on Friday, and Mike Boone and his son Mikai Boone on Saturday. But before we dig in too deep, too early, it's important that you know that these jazz talks are brought to you by the Philadelphia Jazz Legacy Project. We're an organization dedicated to establishing a permanent jazz archive for Philadelphia area jazz artists and the community at large through recordings, video interviews, manuscripts, and material culture like photographs, programs, posters, anything that relates to Philly jazz and its history. I'd also like to thank the Philadelphia Cultural Fund and the Independence Public Media Foundation for partially sponsoring these talks, and the people and attendees who support us with their donations and throughout this whole series, which I think it's been going on since COVID. We've been doing this. So we appreciate it incredibly. We really do. To get a reminder of all of our events and other Philly Jazz Legacy work, please go to our website at phillyjazzhistory.org and sign up for our monthly newsletter. Now, I'd like to introduce tonight's guests. First, Mr. John Patitucci. He's born in Brooklyn, 1959, and began performing and composing at age 12. He quickly moved from playing soul and rock to blues, jazz, and classical music. His eclectic taste caused him to explore all types of music as a player and as a composer. He studied classical bass at San Francisco State University and Long Beach State University. In 1980, he continued his career in Los Angeles as a studio musician and jazz artist. As a studio musician, John has played on countless albums with artists such as B.B. King, Bonnie Raitt, Chick Corea, Wayne Shorter, Michael Brecker, a Philadelphian, by the way, George Benson, Dizzy Gillespie, another Philadelphian, by the way, and Queen Latifah. And again, he's got a discography that's as long as my arm. As a performer, John has played throughout the world with his own band and with jazz luminaries that I've just spoke of. And he's also done some work with some many pop and Brazilian artists that he has played with, including Milton Nascimento, Airto, and Flora Purim, and Ivan Lins. Since 1985, his association with Chick Corea brought him worldwide acclaim, and his many recordings with Chick Corea's electric band and acoustic band, his 6 solo recordings for GRP Records, and his subsequent recordings have brought him 2 Grammy Awards and over 15 Grammy nominations in the composition category. In the year 2000, John began touring again with the legendary Wayne Shorter and the Wayne Shorter Quartet, featuring Danilo Perez on piano and Brian Blade on drums. In 2002, following the retirement of Ron Carter, John began teaching at the City College of New York and was a professor of jazz studies there for 10 years. He also has been involved with the Betty Carter Jazz Ahead program in Washington, D.C., and the Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz. So welcome, John.
Hi. He's a bum from Brooklyn. No.
Next up is Brian Bromberg, who was born in 1960 in Tucson, Arizona. Pretty hot there now, Brian. Yeah. He's a renowned jazz bassist and record producer. He grew up in a musical family, starting on drums before he transitioned into the upright bass in junior high school. His big break came in 1979 when, at just 19 years old, he joined Stan Getz's quintet. That's amazing, and which launched his career. Bromberg is, again, he's got a discography a mile long, has collaborated with numerous jazz legends and contemporary artists, showing his versatility on electric and acoustic bass. He released his first solo album in 1986, which marked the beginning of a very prolific recording career. Bromberg is known for his innovative approach to bass playing, and he's also ventured into production and instrument design, partnering with Carbon Guitars in 2011 to create signature model electric basses. Despite a serious accident that threatened his ability to play, and I'd like to ask you about that, Brian, if I could, he's made a remarkable comeback, and his, like I said, his recorded work with famous artists is a mile long. And welcome to you, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Lastly, Joe Donofrio, with 60 years experience as a musician, manager, promoter, and producer. Joe is an award-winning music producer with 12 Grammy nominations and 6 Grammy Awards. Educated at Youngstown State University, he is currently artistic director and vice president of the South Jersey Jazz Society, and he is the curator of this festival. Lastly, with Joe, Joe was the longtime manager and very good friend to guitarist Pat Martino. And we miss him still. So let's get started. John, talk about the piece you just did. Bring John's face up, Lex.
That's from a record called Soul of the Bass. That's a solo record that I did some years back now already. It's funny how time flies, but that was, I guess it was 40 years after I heard Dave Holland's Emerald Tears record, which was like around, I don't know, 79 or something. So I did this in 19, I believe, 2019, if I'm remembering correctly. But that was a big challenge for me. I'd done some solo concerts, but when I did that record, I did go and play some more solo concerts, and that was a big challenge. I played acoustic bass and some with the bow, and some six string bass, chord melody, and some Bach on the six string and different things. But that was just something that I felt I had to do. It's not it takes a lot of thought and feeling to do these things. I know Brian understands this well. Because usually we don't get the chance to do that many solo concerts, but if we do, we want to make it a story, tell a story, not just get up there and play just about anything, but really
Right.
kind of weave something.
Well, I really loved it. I remember when my friend, bassist Tyrone Brown, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He
Yeah, I
was,
did. I remember hearing him on Pat Martino records.
yeah, and he was with Max Roach a long time. And
Hmm.
he was hired to do solo bass concerts in Germany.
Yeah,
And he's got a whole record too of that. I said, "How did you ever do that?" He said, "It scared the hell out of me."
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I got a funny story. The first time I did one, I
Yeah.
think, really in a bigger venue was some bass festival in Den Haag. And so I'm in my dressing room, and all of a sudden Gary Carr walks in and came to check me out. And Gary Carr, the first North American bass virtuoso in history of the
Right.
bass.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, great, Gary's here, terrific. But
Great.
so it was a little nutty, but I made it. Well, what happened here? Hold on. I don't see myself. Oh, there we are. Okay. So anyway, so that was quite an odyssey for me, an experience, and I enjoyed it. And every once in a while, I'll do one again. I've done some in Italy. In Italy, they're really into it. So I've done a few things there. At Umbria Jazz, I did one after the record came out, and some other things. I
Yeah.
guess I'm looking for punishment. So keep.
So now, what you're doing a Brazilian thing for this for the
Yeah,
festival? Okay, talk to me
yeah.
about that.
Well, I've been involved, and so has Brian, in fact, with playing with many Brazilian artists. And so starting for me, when I was about 23, I started playing with Ayrton and then went all kinds of people after that. And so I have a love for that music. I've done some records there's a record called Mistura Fina that I did, and some other records where I also had Brazilian artists and play, and I love the music a lot, and I've played a lot. So, about, I don't know, man, that's over 5 years ago. I've had this group with Rogério Bocato and Yotam Silberstein playing a ton of Brazilian music,
Okay.
and we did a record um, called Irmão de Fé, which means brothers in faith, and it's based on a tune by Milton Nascimento, which we did.
Mhm.
And then it was for a sort of a boutique vinyl company. Um, and then the record reverted back to me, and I put it out on CD and remastered it and did all that. So we've toured Italy and done some things, and actually toured Europe. And it's a great band. It's Yotam is an unusual guitar player in that he's from Israel, but he knows about a million Brazilian songs. Like he has a brain full of these. He's like a hard drive of Brazilian music. So, and Rogério is from Sao Paulo, and so we've been playing here and there for a while now, and I just love playing those songs. The melodies are unforgettable, and it's lyrical music, and um, I enjoy it a lot. Yeah, that's rhythmically some of the most beautiful and powerful music you could ever find.
Oh yeah, unbelievable. So you've got one CD out of this band so far, or do you
Yeah.
have? Okay, is that going to be there at the festival? You're going to sell those at the festival, or?
Um,
I mean,
don't know.
everybody's streaming so much anymore. You
Yeah,
don't.
now, I mean, that record, when we remastered it and we just streamed it. Which is kind of, I know it's kind of crazy because at shows you can sell CDs, but
Well, I don't
not
know.
many other
These,
places.
yeah. Well, these days, nobody buys CDs anymore except old
It's weird.
people.
Yeah,
You
everything's
know.
changed. They buy them in Europe.
Yeah.
In Europe, they want the real deal. They want to touch it. They want to smell it. They want to taste it. Here, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to come back to you once we open it up. We'll have like a free form dialogue here. So, well, let's go to Brian since he's jumped in here.
Yeah, I
And
got to leave now. Thank you.
anyway, Lex, go ahead and put what is this thing called Love by Brian Bromberg.
Gotta sing.
Nice.
Well,
Nice.
somehow the audio and the video got off, but the music was still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, I'm going to ask you now. I've heard about your Scott LaFaro thing.
That's what that
Why
was.
don't you describe, I mean, that's such a tragic story when you think of Scott LaFaro, Bill Evans, and then the horrible car accident. Tell me about why you decided to dedicate, dedicate an album or your performance to Scott LaFaro.
Well, the way it was not my idea. The way it came out is I do a lot of production, a lot of records for King Records in Japan, and they've been amazingly supportive of me in my career, and I love them for it. They've been great, and they've given me ideas to do things that I never would have thought of, and it's just been a really great relationship and a great experience because you do things that like you totally out of the box from what you wanted to do. And they called me and said, "We want you to do a Scott LaFaro record." And I actually turned it down. I said, no. It's like, I don't need to be doing a Scott LaFaro record. And they're like, "No, you got to do this. You got to do this." And I'm like, I don't know. And I said, "All right, let me think about it." And they said, "Please think about it. We really want you to do this." So I was like, okay. So I went and started listening to, Bill Evans' Live at the Village Vanguard in 1961, and I started listening to these records and listening to Scott. And it was just like, holy crap. It's like, I didn't realize how much he inspired me and influenced my playing because he was so inventive and so unusual. Like he wasn't like a four on the floor, walking old school bass player. He was just this free spirit that did all this just ridiculous, beautiful stuff that no one had ever even heard of before. And I was like, in those days, I was really focused on walking bass, and I was into the old school straight ahead guys and just doing what the bass player does. And then I hear all this stuff from Scotty, and it like blew my mind. And it wasn't until I realized how much he influenced me on his soloing and how fearless he was that I agreed to do the record. Because at first I just didn't want to do it, but I realized that he really had an impact on me. And it was incredibly rewarding experience for me. And one thing about it that just made it really fantastic was his sister, who's in her 80s, is a writer, and she interviewed me for a book that she did. She did a biography on Scott. So when I agreed to do this record and knew I was doing this, I reached out to her and said, "You've got to be involved in this record."
Yeah.
And so we spent a lot of time together, and she told me all these incredible stories, and it made me feel extremely connected to Scotty and to the family and to the music and to what he was going through as a young bass player that was doing everything kind of against the grain in a sense. So I really kind of related to his personal struggle as an artist. And I'm still in awe of what he was able to do on that instrument before bass setups and pickups and microphones and strings and all this stuff. It's remarkable what he did. And I just can't believe that at 25 we lost him, you know. So
Yeah.
that's where the record came from, and I'm really proud of it. I'm really glad that I did it because I feel so much more connected to it. And we did it old school. We did 14 songs in 2 days. We just went in, played live, and that's how you make a jazz record. And it was really rewarding. I loved it. It was really fun.
Who's going to be with you? I meant to ask this of John too. Who's going to be in your band for the festival?
The same trio as the record. Tom Zink on piano, who is a guy that I've known forever and lives in Long Beach, and he's just a beautiful human and a wonderful musician. He was a huge Bill Evans fan, but the way he plays in the trio and how he listens to me and how he supports me when I play, he gives me an incredible amount of freedom and just so much heart in his music and his playing. And the drummer is Charles Ruggiero, who's from New York originally, but lives out here, who's just like from the first time, I'd never heard of him before. And I played with him on a gig, and by bar 8 on the gig, it's like, all right, I knew this is the guy that I wanted to play on the record because, that and this are the same. His time feel, it was just so fun to play with him. And it's just a beautiful trio, and it's just great to play this kind of music with the trio, and I'm loving it. It's really been great.
So are you taking standards that Scott LaFaro recorded with Bill Evans and reworking them, or how are you?
Yeah, that's most of it is classic, essentially classic Bill Evans recorded tracks that Scotty was on. I recorded 2 of Scott's tunes on the record, and then a couple things I changed the arrangements on a little bit just to make them mine, but not much. I was pretty like into, not like I want to replicate what's already been done, but it's pretty honest to the music. The only thing that I really drastically changed was Waltz for Debbie. And I actually did that as a bossa nova, and it's beautiful.
No kidding.
It works so well. If you heard the tune for the first time, you would think it was written that way. That was fun to do something different to it. Other than that, most everything is just pretty straight ahead, but that's, I love that, honestly, because we just went in and played it, had a great time, and I think it shows on the record. There's a lot of warmth in the record.
Now, are you going to have CDs there? Or are you going to be?
Yeah, I'll have CDs and vinyl. Actually, we did vinyl.
Oh, wonderful!
It was amazing. Yeah, vinyl. I don't care what anybody says. Vinyl, man, vinyl sounds great. And
I'm the same way.
So warm. Bass is just like it's so
it's the best.
So much air. It's great. I love it.
I know. All right, John. I forget what I was going to ask you. Now what's going to?
I have Rogerio and Yotam are going to be with me. You wanted to ask that?
Oh yes. And
I want to say one thing. The drummer you spoke of, that's Vinny Rogerio's son, right?
Yeah, from Rochester.
Yeah, Vinny Ruggiero.
And his dad played with
a legend up there. He played like Philly Joe Jones.
Yeah, totally. And that's why. And it's great that you mentioned that, because that's why he feels so great, because he's so old school and so right. And that's why he and I totally connected, because of my dad from Brooklyn, who was a jazz drummer,
there you go.
And who we used to hang with and play with and study with, and how that affected me with where one is. And Charles got that from his dad, and there's only one way to do it, and that's where it is. And well, I shouldn't say there's only one way to do it. For me, there's one way to do it. But when you play with cats that have that sensibility, it's just so beautiful to play time and just to play music, because it's just
and I heard about you. I heard that you can really play the drums too.
Well, it was my first instrument, actually. It's like that was.
That's cool.
I mean, I always say this, and I do this probably just to get myself pissed off because, you know, it's like if I actually practiced drums for a while, I'd be a better drummer than bass player because like bass was my second instrument. And I think the part of me that like gets sick of my bass playing at times, it's like, just play drums and have fun, right? You know, but that background of knowledge of time
Yeah.
I think has been invaluable for me. You know, I love it. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. And, you know, that's funny you say that because I really wanted to play the drums when I was growing up.
Oh, that's funny, man.
I had bongos and stuff. My dad wouldn't let me have drums, and I was growing up in Brooklyn like your dad.
Yeah.
And I have a drum set now and everything, but I don't have much time to practice. But I use it when I teach,
Yeah.
and I use it to get students to really internalize the time in their bodies
Yeah.
because it's the best instrument.
Well, and you're 100% correct. Time is in your DNA. It's how you feel it is in your body. And we just, whatever instrument we play, but your time feel, if I played a different instrument, my time feel is still going to be the same because you're who you are, you know, and that's a really cool thing to get people to own who they are. And then it just comes out whatever instrument you play. So that's cool that you do that.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me ask you both this question. I know, John, in your bio, it says you also took piano, which a lot of us do, but why did you like focus on the bass? What was it about the bass that brought your creative spirit to fruition, that made it easier to communicate that? John?
I think because my older brother, who was my hero, we're like twins, but we're separated by 3 years. He's an amazing guy. He's a guitar player. He was also a pastor for many years.
Oh.
He's a great teacher, and he was my first teacher. Like I tried to play guitar like him, like he was taken from a guitar teacher in Brooklyn who was making him learn how to read and everything. And I had an ear, and I didn't want to learn how to read, and I was only 8. They put the guitar in my hand. I'm left-handed.
Oh.
So I started playing with I can't play with a pick, and I hated it. And my brother kind of saw it and went, I quit playing guitar immediately. It was too squunchy trying to get my hands in that small space to play a chord. So he saw that, and he got this hilarious Sears Telstar short scale electric bass. It was hanging on the wall down the street in East 39th Street. And we got it for $10. And he put that thing in my hands, and I was like, wow, this feels good. He said, see, you don't have to play with a pick anymore. You use your finger. And once he did that, and then right at that time, you know, it was Jamerson on all those Stevie Wonder records and all the R&B stuff, soul music, and the Beatles, and all this stuff converging. And then my grandfather bringing home all these jazz records. So when I was very young, I heard Art Blakey with Wayne and Freddie Hubbard on it. I heard there was Thelonious Monk Underground was in that box. Genius plus Soul equals Jazz. Ray Charles was in that box. Some Oscar Peterson with Ray Brown, and there was a record called Blues Etude, which had Ray Brown on one side and Sam Jones on the other. Wes Montgomery records with Ron and Grady Tate and Herbie on them, like from the CTI era. Verve CTI, and so we put the stuff on. We didn't know what it was, but it captivated us, and we didn't know at the time because I was growing up in the '60s in Brooklyn. Not far from us was Joe Henderson, Freddie Hubbard. All these people were living. Max Roach lived there.
Sure.
I was in East Flatbush, so that's not far from where these guys were. So I had no idea, but jazz basically came and took me, you know.
Now,
so even though I played a lot of other music.
Did you go out to the clubs to see them when you were younger, or nothing?
I couldn't go out to clubs when I was 10.
Oh, 10.
No. I mean, you know, so basically we were there. And then in my early teens, I went to the Bay Area for a while. We moved west. And then I started, my brother would take me in and we'd see all the bands that would come to all the clubs in San Francisco. And we stayed there for a while. And then I went to LA around 78, you know, for my second and third years of college. I went to San Francisco State, studied with Charles Ciani, who was amazing. And then studied with Abe Luboff in LA at Long Beach. But then he wanted me to quit everything else and be just solely a classical player. And so I bailed and went out on the road when I was 19. That was
That's a familiar story.
Yeah, we all know that one.
Brian, all right, tell me what made you lock in on the bass?
Well, just to address John for a second. Now I know why you're such a badass. Is because when listen to all the records you listened to growing up and your experience. So that makes complete sense as to why you're who you are. You know, it's funny because I grew up a drummer, and the one thing that my family was very supportive of the arts and music, and when I was young, they said, well, why don't you learn another instrument that has nothing to do with the drums? Completely opposite. So they suggested cello. So I was like, all right, whatever. And then, you know, that really didn't work out. I was awful at it. I hated it, but it was, you know, it was still nice to do something different. And the orchestra director in junior high school was just like, Brian, you know, you see the big bass over there that nobody's playing? Why don't you go play that? Because I don't want to hear you saw your cello in half. So we have no bass player in the orchestra. So I was like, bass. I mean, look at that thing. It's big. I was like, I don't want to play that thing. Thing's bigger than me. It's like, come on, you know. So I remember going to my dad and my brother, who were both drummers, and I just said, yeah, they want me to play bass. And they're like, whoa, do that. We could play together. We could play jazz. Go play bass. So the next day I became a bass player. And that's
wow.
But the thing that was amazing about it for me, which was really interesting because I had no clue. You know, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, so it's not really the mecca of jazz.
Right.
But it's all records, you know, my dad and all the people he played with and all the records and growing up in that space. But I had no idea that I had melody or a melodic side to me because I was so bad at the cello, I didn't understand melody. But I had rhythm from being a drummer. So when I got to the bass, you know, the rhythm was already part of my DNA, going back to what I was saying before. But I had no idea that I had a melodic side. And then for some reason on the bass, it just connected and it just blew up. And it became very comfortable and very natural quickly. And I just learned, you know, I didn't want to learn how to read music. I didn't want to learn any of that stuff, but you have to, you know. So I just went through all that. I went through it and loved playing classical bass. You know, if Gary Carr walked into where I was playing, I'd probably have a heart attack. You know, it's like, growing up, that was my world. I loved it. But, you know, as I started getting into improvisation and jazz, that was it. It just like, I was gone. I loved the freedom of it. It was amazing. Plus I could play with my brother and my dad. That was very cool when you're young.
Now, can I ask you, it mentions in your bio that you had a accident, Brian. Now, what was that? Can I ask you about it?
Yeah, of course. I fell in exactly the wrong way, and I fractured my back in 2 places, and it was pretty unbelievable. It was I'd never experienced pain like that in my life. I couldn't. Thank God there was a woman who actually was my fiance. We split up, but we were together for 11 years. She was there visiting me, and she was outside and heard me screaming. And I was just like uncontrollably screaming because I couldn't, you know, the shock to my body. But it took, after an hour, I couldn't even get to my knees after an hour. And we finally had to call 911 and go to the hospital and see. And I just remember saying to the guys in the hospital, yeah, I broke my back. I know I broke my back. And they're like, yeah, right. Sure. Then, you know, they did the CT scan and all this stuff. They come and put their head down and they go, yeah, you were right. It was pretty brutal. I mean, I'm the luckiest guy in the world because had the fractures been in a different place in my spine, it could have paralyzed me, you know, so it didn't, but it was a very long, painful recovery. I couldn't move. I couldn't, you know, playing the bass. One of the doctors, it was amazing because there was an issue with a cellist from the LA Philharmonic broke his back. And the doctor said to him, you cannot play for like 6 months. You cannot play a note. And the guy's like, are you kidding me? He's like, I'm telling you, you cannot play. And I was like, well, if I can just sit in a weird position, why can't I pluck? Well, the cellist, you know, he did what the doctor said, and it was the right thing to do, and he's fine now. And then what the doctor basically said to me was exactly the same thing. He's like, look, I worked with this guy from the symphony. I'm telling you the same thing. You cannot play. The amount of pain, you know, the electric bass, you wear it on a strap, you're compressing your spine, right? That's painful. Your arms are kind of free, but the weight compressing your spine is a drag, you know? The upright bass, well, you're kind of standing up. You think you can play it, but it was incredibly painful. But thumb position, you're putting all this weight in front of you, and then you're pushing to play back, you know, down. He said you cannot play a note. So that was. I mean, the pain of dealing with not being able to move for 6 months, but it was so hard to not play an instrument. That was the first time in my life for 6 months I couldn't play. That was unbearable to not be able to play, you know, but I had to do what they said, you know. So it healed, you know, it healed as good as it's going to heal. And, you know.
How long ago was that you went through all that?
That was 2012.
Oh,
wow.
So everything's fine now, right?
Well,
I say hopefully.
I did it again in December, actually, and fractured another vertebrae. I'm kind of, I guess I'm just kind of a crazy. Yeah, but it wasn't as bad. So that one I've been able to deal with. It was the L2. The L1 was the bad one. That one was really bad. But that was the same kind of thing. And it's been 9 months, and I'm actually functioning now and doing things. It's just, you know, unfortunately in my family, we just have bad backs. We have bad DNA. You know, we have, you know, my sisters have osteoporosis. You know, it's like I actually do. You know, it's just like we just have bad issues, and then you fall wrong. You don't think about it. You fall wrong, and there you go. And then we take so much for granted. But one stupid thing, and all of a sudden you can't earn a living. You can't play music. You can't do anything. It's amazing. The life experience of that is pretty incredible. It makes
very precarious. But all right, well, you guys have been great so far. Joe, I want to bring you into this.
Oh, I don't know if I want to join this one. This is too interesting.
Yeah, well,
I'm enjoying this.
Once this is edited and put out there without the commercials in it, it'll be terrific. But tell me about the festival. Why did you decide to go with this idea of Bases Loaded, and why did you hire these two guys? And tell me.
I want to mention the title because I have to tell Brian, I did not steal that from you because, you know, in 1988, he came out with a CD called, or an album called Bases Loaded.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah, I apologize for every note on that record.
At any rate, you know, we try to feature different instruments with our festivals. And I was always a big fan of bass players. And I also was a drummer. That's what I played. And there's some wonderful connection between the two. And you kind of zoom in on the bass player. And these are two world-class players. And I should mention that Kira Moser is going to be on the 10th. And John, you may want to interject something because she had told me that she studied with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kira is an unbelievable person. Kira came to Berkeley. She's blind, and she is an incredible bass player. And her ability to learn music without being able to see anything, her ability to memorize things is ridiculous. She's incredible. And Danilo and I had her in the Global Institute, and she's an astounding person and plays the heck out of the 6-string bass. And that's her thing. You know, she doesn't play any upright. It's just electric bass. But boy, can she play electric
Well,
bass.
we're excited about having her come on board, and
She's
her
definitely
story is so interesting.
Yeah,
Yes.
and also because part of our program is involved in using music for social change and justice and helping people. She's got a phenomenal thing with all that. Her ability to encourage people who don't have sight is unbelievable. I mean, what she's achieved already as a young person.
Amazing. Born in Ireland, raised in Austria, and living in Boston. Interesting. I'm excited about her. And of course, I've always been a Brian fan, and I remember Pat Martino talking about Brian, and we never got a chance to do much, but we talked about it, and I'm a big fan. So it was wonderful. Don Lukoff told me about the new CD, tribute to Scott LaFaro, and when I looked into it, I thought it was perfect for our database. The people who come to our festival, they're going to love it. And John Patitucci, we have a little bit of history. We've done some work together with Pat Martino. He played on one of Pat's CD in 2006, which was the most played CD for that year. And it was a tribute to Wes Montgomery. So that was such a treat to be in the studio with John. I'm a huge fan, not only of his playing, but as a person. I feel honored to be a friend. He's a great guy, and he instills some wonderful things, not only in music, but in a certain way of life, how we should conduct ourselves. And I think it's important today with a lot of the young people, and especially he's teaching, and I'm sure they're learning a lot from you, John. We're excited about you coming in and doing the Brazilian music. How wonderful is that? We appreciate it.
It's a fun trio. Thank you. It's a fun trio, and I'll be playing both. I'll get to play both instruments, so that's fun. I would just want to say how much that meant to me, because my brother and I were massive Pat Martino fans, and when I met you, it felt like I had known you for years. But playing with Pat was a big deal for me, because I remember being a kid when I, playing electric bass and acoustic bass, but transcribing a solo that he played on the album Consciousness, which was a big record for my brother and I that freaked us out. And it was on Impressions. I used to run around the house singing that solo because it was just so heavy. And he really, I don't know, man, you ask George Benson about him, you ask a lot of people about him. I remember George, one time I asked, somebody brought up Pat's name. And he said, Pat Martino, you better watch it. He was like, and it was hilarious. And of course, Pat would say the same about George. And but Pat was very influential and kind of a very special person for me in terms of an inspiration. Somebody with that level of time playing on the guitar too. It was insane,
Yeah, Pat was incredible. I've known him for a while now, and I had him talk to my class at Penn. I was teaching jazz history at University of Pennsylvania, and I told the students, I said, now he's going to kind of go off on a tangent about seeing colors and then hearing the colors and then making some. And they said, oh, really? And I said, yeah, just go with it. Just go with the vibe. And they absolutely ate him up. They loved him. He was
very special.
Oh, right? There's Andy.
There.
Oh my God, that's another bass player. Oh, no.
Andy!
Right.
Just what we need, another bass player.
Hey, congrats, man. That's awesome.
Well,
Hey, thanks, Brian.
That's
well,
very
Andy,
cool.
why don't you
There
talk
he
about
is.
what you're going to be doing? And then we'll bring Michael on.
Oh, well, so I've been blessed to be asked to play on this with these esteemed musicians. I'm just blown away that you even let me talk to these guys. I mean, you guys are my heroes. And Brian, I don't know if you probably don't even remember, but when you had the bass on the broadband.
I don't remember. Of course I remember. I played your music, man. Come on.
Yeah, man, that's like the highest honor, dude.
Come on, man. It was great.
Amazing.
Totally. Of course I remember.
So yeah, we're gonna be revisiting the old fusion, the older fusion music this time, like Mike Maneri and George Duke and that kind of stuff, just kind of revisiting. For me, I don't get to play that so much anymore, so we'll have some fun,
Oh, I'm going to be
great.
I'm going to be stopping in at Gregory's, Andy, to see you. And
Awesome.
who's in your band now?
Demetrius Pappas
Okay.
and Josh Orlando, an incredible young drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And also a great young saxophone player, Gregory Grisbart.
Oh,
Local guy. He's like an amazing player.
wow. That's great.
So yeah. So I'm looking forward to it,
I'm so glad you could make it to the Zoom cast tonight.
Well, I'll mention it again. Andy this year won our George Mesterhazy Jazz Master Award, and we were very happy and proud to give it to him.
I was
Andy's
blown away by that.
well, Andy, it's one thing to be a good musician, but it's another thing to be loved by so many people. You are very special in our community. And also, he played with Pat Martino as well. He was on the road with Pat. Yeah, so he got a little taste of Mr. Martino.
He drugged me around the Coliseum a few times.
Yeah, that'll mess you up for life, but in a good way.
And also on the Saturday, Mike Boone and his son, Mike Mikai, is that how you say it?
That's right.
Yeah, young up and coming drummer. We're excited about him coming on board. And Mike Boone has been a bass player in our area that's amazing player. In fact, I think he's doing some things in New York now.
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
He's got a jam session up at Smalls, I think.
Smalls.
Yeah.
Wonderful player.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that. So the whole festival, the 3 days that we're having it's just chock full of good musicians, good people, and we're excited about it.
All right, well, Joe, now get down to the nuts and bolts. How much is a ticket? Do you,
Well, at Gregory's, it's no charge. The late night is no charge. We're welcoming everybody to come over. For the festival, I mean, it's so economical. For $50, you get all 3 days, 3 shows for $50. If you come individually, it's $20 a show. So our whole idea is to introduce these major talents to our community. And so, it's very reasonable. They can come in and see these world-class players, and it doesn't cost them a fortune. And you guys will see they're so appreciative. And I know Suzanne has been to many of our festivals, so we have a very good database. They love the jazz. They go crazy.
They know jazz too.
Oh, they know it.
They're educated.
Bless you for doing it and for making it affordable, because that's so much of it these days. You go to a club or you want to go hear somebody, and it's just so ungodly expensive. When you think of tickets and drinks and food, and for people that have families, babysitter and all this kind of stuff, you're going to go hear a band that's going to cost you $300.
Yeah, it's expensive.
That's tough, right? So to make it affordable is wonderful, and I think it's great that you're doing that. So
thank you. We're looking forward to it, and I don't know, could we get Michael on? At any rate, thank you. I can't thank you enough. It's so interesting to sit here and listen to you guys talk about these things, and it just proves that if you have perseverance, if this is something you love, you just do it, and you keep doing it, and everything else falls into place. And reading about both of your careers and the people you've worked with, and just astounding. And we appreciate you coming on board.
Right?
Pardon me?
John said it all. He said the music took him, right? Because that's it. It's like it's not, and the thing, it's funny because when I teach, I always say you're a person first, musician second, bass player third, right? Full stop. But on the flip side, how do you separate the music from you at the same time, even though you kind of have to? It's impossible to. You live it. You are it. It's your life. It's always in your head. But so I understand that the aliens came down and took Patitucci and said, "We're going." I get it. And it worked.
Well, obviously they made a little visit to Arizona as well.
Yeah, maybe they stopped to refuel. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
there you go. Yeah.
Well, how do you think I feel sitting here next to demigod?
Well, Well, who knows, Mike? They obviously, they could stop by for a little cheesesteak as well. Come on.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you for thank you for thank you for inviting me to be a part of the festival. It means a lot, and when you called me, after talking to Don, it just meant the world to me, and I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to come do it. And thank you again for having me part of it. I think it's really cool.
Well,
feeling is mutual.
I'll be seeing
too.
everybody. I'm coming to catch everything. I'm so excited about this whole thing.
Me
And
too.
I expect Andy to buy me a drink at Gregory's.
Well, I got the credit card open.
But anyway, we're gonna have to wrap this up. But put up the website for everybody. Here we go. SouthJerseyJazz.organization for people who want to check this out and buy a ticket right away. There's John Patitucci's website, Bromberg.net. That's his. Their websites are great, guys. I'm telling you, I really enjoyed them. And of course, the PhillyJazzHistory.org. I urge you all to visit our website and our YouTube channel. And we're going to be seeing you soon. I hope to see you at the festival. And I want to thank Brian and John and Joe and Andy. And I'm sorry, Michael, I couldn't get on for some reason.
Thank you, Suzanne. You've been
Yes,
such a
thank you.
supporter.
Yeah. But you know what else has to be said? Philly is one of the most dangerous towns for bass players in the history of jazz. The
Wow.
amount of unbelievable bass players that come from Philly,
Oh, it's ground zero.
astounding.
Jimmy
It's
Merritt.
ground zero in this country by far. No, seriously,
Well,
John's right.
speaking of bass players, we've got the great Jimmy Merritt's collection in our archive, and we
Wow.
just picked it up. He's got
I
like
love him.
he's got like 40. He had 40 bankers boxes full of manuscripts.
Hmm.
He was on that first record that I heard of Art Blakey called Mosaic. That was Jimmy
Oh,
Merritt.
Yeah,
Killing
yeah,
on that record.
yeah. He's one
Wow.
of the giants. But all right, guys, I'll see you later. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Love you, Suzanne.
All
right,
right,
Take
take
care,
guys.
care.
everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Your tax-deductible donation will help the community build the Philadelphia Jazz Archives for everyone to enjoy.